Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with electronic violinist, composer, producer, and LIfe performer Asher Laub. He began classical violin training at the age of 2 and had already performed with the Buffalo Philharmonic by the age of 13. He's been featured on PBS and made headlines on CNN, WABC, NBC, and the New York Post, along with many other major news sources. In 2014, he lived a musician's nightmare when he lost the strength to play his violin for a number of years. Refusing to accept conventional advice, he found a way to heal, building his strength to an unprecedented level. He has been privileged to teach children and adolescents from under-resourced neighborhoods in the Bronx for almost 4 years. He's got a great story. Enjoy this interview.
Man, hey, thank you for taking a minute out today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. So, before we get to your life as a busy musician, obviously, and one of the things I think you probably know about me is that I cover the world of jazz, and the musician world, I think, of all of the arts was thrown into a violent shake of a snow globe in a way that other professions weren't. So my question to you is, over this COVID time, how did you cope? How did this time become something that was livable and digestible? And how did it change you now that we're kind of coming out of it?
Man, that's a good question. Sometimes I still feel like we're in it, but or at least the news makes us think that way. Exactly. How did I cope? Well, I was fortunate enough to be, with my family in a kind of a suburban setting as opposed to the city, which is I probably would lose my mind. We moved out of the city maybe a good 10 years ago. And I'll tell you how I coped through music. I ramped up my music, and I had already been doing music full time at that point. And it was pretty devastating to just hear that all of a sudden, government's requiring us to stay home, no jobs, and everything was pretty much covert at that point. So anybody who was working was just, obviously they're trying to stick to the rules, but there are a lot of people that weren't. And, getting all these calls to go out of town, and I'm just like, okay, I can't go, and my wife won't let me go, and I just can't earn a living, but this is what I have. This is what I've invested my time into. And, I connected with folks on Facebook across the country and, actually in Europe as well. And, as healing as it was for them, it was probably twice as healing for me. Really, that's where it started, and it probably got me through the whole phase, that whole year.
So whenever I hear and see that somebody starts an instrument as early as you did at 2, you hear the word prodigy, and you hear these magnanimous terms being thrown around. So my question to you is, this almost seems like it's borderline DNA for you. Talk to me about how this life of music became your reality now.
So you'd like me to sort of talk about how music has kind of evolved from just this background thing, just taking lessons as a kid, to it pretty much consuming my life at this point? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And where you were born and raised too, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, sure. So born and raised upstate New York, Williamsville, a suburb of Buffalo, and I was there for most of my life. Actually, at this point, it hasn't been most of my life. It's been about a half of my life, but up until about 19, 20. Then I moved to Israel for a year, moved back to New York, and that's when I hit the ground running on the music scene. Starting music at the age of 2 was pretty intense, but in retrospect, I'm going to say I was pretty grateful for it, because I think if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to tackle the challenges of being a musician today, which are pretty complex. I'm listening to music all the time. I'm always consuming it. I'm not just like a studio guy or a classical ensemble musician at this point, just sitting down to read sheet music, get paid at the end of the day. I'm memorizing a lot of music, a lot of tunes, improvising, and kind of honing in on that type of skill, which very much is in the realm of jazz. That you're, that you, I know that's your world. So I'm sort of pushing the envelope in both, classical, like I mentioned, like reading sheet music, and also improv. So it's sort of like a blend between the two, playing popular music And that's what's pretty much consuming my life. So I'm playing a whole eclectic array of different types of songs at different venues for different clients. And that's what I'm doing. I didn't really anticipate it happening. It's just sort of, as my wife says, music sort of picked me. I didn't pick it. I actually picked a different career. But music was paying the bills, and this is what I do.
What was the other career?
Oh, three others. Well, so I have 3 degrees in the sciences from NYU and in New York, and I've been working my way as a professional musician throughout while pursuing those degrees, just to sort of, I always had a passion for the sciences, and I also was just thinking, okay, I was never really told that being a musician is a good idea. I was told kind of the opposite, and so I pursued a degree in the sciences while I kind of chased my passion. That was, again, actually paying the bills. And I got my BSN, science education, my master's, and taught for 4 years in the DOE, and bachelor's in bio. So, but again, just went back to music after I finished all that, and here I am.
So you played on some pretty big stages over time, and I'm curious, what was the venue that you played where you thought, wow, I've arrived, this is a big deal, maybe butterflies or a moment of revelation?
All the iconic venues, really. So yeah, all the iconic venues. Madison Square Garden was pretty surreal for me. Carnegie Hall, being on PBS twice was also pretty cool. And, just doing some festivals with like 7,000 people. It's pretty big, you can get up to 40, but 6 to 7 is pretty big for me. And, it made me feel like, hey, I'm a big deal, until I realized like it's a lot of this stuff is a bit of a mirage. You're kind of like famous for a few weeks, and then you go back to normal musician life. But these things come more frequently, and I don't know. I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish this far, and I'm just pushing to get my music out there, and hopefully build more of a tour in Europe, across the country, and looking forward to that stuff.
What was the first live show that you saw that blew you away, that made you think, that's where it's at, I love this?
Well, I can tell you the first show that blew me away experience-wise, but not music-wise, and that was Bob Dylan. So I was actually pretty disappointed, but Phil Lesh, I think, headlined. Bob Dylan, I believe. Oh, no, sorry. Phil Lesh opened for Bob Dylan. It was at a big festival, and we were just excited to be there, and Bob Dylan was kind of sleeping on stage, and then Phil Lesh comes up, and he just kind of rocks the crowd. People loved it. Sorry, vice versa. I just did that twice. Bob Dylan came up. He was a little bit sleepy, but anyway, but just the experience sort of made me feel like, I'd like to do something like this. And the truth is, I've been on concert stages my whole life. As a kid, just being in Greater Buffalo Youth Orchestra and GBYO, doing NISM auditions. My parents pretty much trained me to be a performer, and being with the Buffalo Philharmonic, also in late middle school, early high school, also kind of gave me this taste for being on stage in front of a big audience, and none of those experiences were quite like a festival, which is really what more in line with my love. But I'm gonna have to say that my experience with kind of going to the Bob Dylan Festival was really the first for me.
It's interesting. I went to a Bob Dylan show back in the late 90s, in my 20s. We had a big festival that was in front of our World War I monument here in Kansas City, and I was so hyped up to see Dylan. And man, it was like he was leaning against the mic. He was mumbling. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't understand nothing. I was so hyped though to see him, but it was the same thing. It's like, dude, this is the guy. This is one of the most iconic people in music, and it was a sleeper, man. It was just like, why do it if you're just going to be up there and it's just not going to work out? But anyway, I know that feeling. Just I feel that whole thing. So,
that's just funny.
Yeah. So my question to you is, you've been at this for a while, and what is it that you like the best about being a professional musician? I mean, obviously you get to create. There's all of these different aspects that go into it. But what is it that you wake up every day thinking, man, I can't wait to get to this?
Producing my original music, really. It's just something I'm very passionate about. Doing the covers, it's cool. It's fun. But producing original music and just having my just collaborating with really talented artists, which doesn't happen as frequently as I'd like. I'd like it to be a little bit more of a regular thing. Right now I'm working with two really talented singers and just want to get that out. So I look forward to that every morning, and I look forward to my gigs. I just look forward to just the different events that I play, and especially the concerts. That's just something that I'm just motivated every day to just get up and connect with people through music.
So who would you consider, mentors or role models for you that have really shaped the way that you've become, or have given you things that you remember to this day that reverberate with you?
Well, my teacher, Tom Halpin, he's really a brilliant teacher, a student of Ivan Glamian from Juilliard. He was actually a contemporary with my aunt, Ann Sheila, in the Boston Symphony. They actually dated, believe it or not. It's really interesting. I wonder if she's going to listen to this podcast. And Itzhak Perlman, I think, was in his class also. But yeah, he was a real inspiration for me, and definitely drove me to kind of achieve the best skills that I could in at least classical music realm. Chick Corea is a real inspiration, just music-wise, and Bella Fleck, being sort of in the bluegrass realm of that genre, which sort of relates more to the violin than Chick does. So that's been a major influence. And then just looking at like major touring artists, crossover classical violinists like David Garrett and Lindsey Sterling. They're pretty much legends in the game, and they've really they're what's the word? They're trailblazers in the field, in the sense that they've helped to create this major departure from classical without losing classical. The classical, being able to sort of showcase the classical skills while inviting in the rest of the world that's listening to the electronic music and pop music, and sort of making the violin more inviting. So, yeah, those are my
right.
general the mentors. I'm also a big fan of the Pentatonics.
Yeah.
Kevin Alusala.
Are you familiar with Regina Carter, the jazz violinist?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't believe I even didn't mention that. Vanessa May, too.
Yeah, I went to a jazz fest about 3 or 4 years ago with my wife, and, when we met, she wasn't really into jazz, so she obviously got baptized pretty hardcore in it. And we were at an outdoor festival, and I didn't really know about Regina that much, but she got up there, and man, she just took hold and ran with it. She was so good. And I think about violin in the world of jazz kind of like the vibraphone or some other instrument, maybe even like a tuba. You just don't see it that much, but when it's there, it's this gem that's just getting annihilated by sunlight and blaring out. It's just something that, it really does magnify what's going on. And I really remember thinking I really got more and more into violin. I'm trying to think, is Mads Tolling, he's a cat that does a lot of violin, I believe, too.
Who? I didn't get that name.
His name is Mads Tolling.
Matt Tolling. I'll check that out. Doesn't ring a bell, but
I'll send it over to you on the dashboard and with cool. The name and maybe a link. But yeah, he's good. But anyways, so my question to you is this: when you look back on your life of, you've been on, prestigious stages, you've been all over the place. What accolade did you receive over your career that surprised you? Not your favorite, that's never fair, But what one made you think, wow, that was something I just didn't expect, came out of left field?
I haven't really thought about that, but before I answer that, I actually didn't want to forget to mention Karen Briggs from a Yanni concert I went to in Radio City a number of years ago. That I found to be pretty inspiring from the vantage point of a violinist. Just seeing her, just the tone and like the jazz type quality and her improv and just stage presence. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, sure.
Accolades. I cannot even. I mean, I've just, when I was at Carnegie Hall, I spoke about I introduced Neon Dreams, and I spoke about sort of the troubling past that I've dealt with, which, a bunch of my listeners, if they're listening to this podcast, they might be kind of bored to death at this point, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But just losing the ability to lift the violin and then regaining that at such a young age. Originally not knowing if I'd ever be able to continue making music in my career. I guess that sort of like struck a chord with the audience, and see, as they saw me sort of dancing my ass off on stage, playing Neon Dreams. I got a bit of it was a pretty intense response, let's just say, and I was really, really touched. And that was just, I guess, one moment that sort of sticks out in my mind, in the realm of accolades that you're referring to. Another thing, actually, when I was a kid, probably one of the worst performances I've ever done. I probably got the greatest response I've ever received, and that was in high school. That was Williams High School. There was about, I don't know, I'm going to say about, 700 to 1,000 people in the audience. It's pretty big school, and it was like the graduation. And I got up there and I played of all choices, Schindler's List. I was accompanied by pianist. It was one of the most depressing songs I could have chosen. I was new to the world of I was new to stepping out of the classical world at that point. We're just talking I was in 12th grade. I wasn't thinking about making it a career. But it was literally a standing ovation at the end of that song. And then at the end, and I was thinking, wow, I was my tone sucked in terms of the pickup. I used this scratchy, imbalanced pickup. I'm trying to remember the name of the pickup. Back then the pickups weren't too great. It was like a $100 little scratchy thing. You just hear the high end. You couldn't even roll that off. It was not EQ'd through a mixer or anything. But when I walked outside, a bunch of my friends, they came over, they were so excited at my performance, playing Schindler's List, and they're like, well, why did you play such a sad song? And then it dawned on me that none of my teachers, or the guy who accompanied me, who was also the head of the jazz band there, mentioned that maybe that's a depressing song to play, celebrating your graduation. So that's just a funny little anecdote there.
That's awesome. So, let's say we get off the phone here and a jazz DeLorean pulls up in front of your house, and you can punch in the digits, go back in time, and see anybody perform live. Where are you going? Who are you going to see?
That's a good question. Maybe Joe Venuti, Jean-Luc Ponty, although Jean-Luc Ponty is still alive. But I haven't seen him yet. These guys are trailblazers in the jazz violin scene, and I guess if it weren't for them, I don't even know if bands would be considering putting me on a bandstand. And it would, it's pretty much my full-time career now.
What was the one album for you? If you could think back to one album that's always been seminal in your development and just love of music, what would that album be?
Well, it's funny because I've been right now my head is full of Bollywood music at the moment, but that's not really relevant to so much jazz. But was it Enigmatic Ocean by Jean-Luc Ponty? That, again, nothing quite like it. And, or was it Cosmic Messenger? I mean, he's got the Imagery Voyage. The guy's just a genius. Music that he made back in the 70s, just totally just going beyond what people ever expected out of the violin. And just listening to that when back in high school, I just thought, I could do that, and I want to do it, and that's, I guess, why I started to play with the jazz band in high school. That's pretty much the big milestone in my musical experience for me. Yeah.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of you. Who do you think you are?
I'm still evolving. I still don't know who I am. My performances are always developing and changing. I'm always kind of retesting. I think I'm you're saying musically. You're asking musically, right?
And I think that's just a part of who you are. I think overall, just your perception of you as a person.
So that's interesting. And I guess I asked that question because, my career does not define who I am. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a very independent-minded, stubborn individual who, chooses career paths that aren't necessarily the most practical, but kind of just keeps pushing ahead to make it work. I don't know. I'm a hopeful individual. I'm a loving person who wants to inspire millions of other people, who wants to make the world a better place. And right now I've sort of chosen music to be that vector, if you will. And I think that's who I am at the moment.
What are you the proudest of? When you sit back in the easy chair and think about your career and your life, just overall, what are you the proudest of?
Well, I'm proud of my music career. Despite all odds, I don't think I was really meant to achieve what I did, and I just sort of thought out of the box. So I'm definitely proud of that, of what I've achieved there. I think I'm most proud of the family that I've built, that I've maintained. I got two beautiful kids. My music my albums are gonna live beyond me, which I'm grateful for. But my kids and my legacy, that's gonna be my real legacy. That's gonna be probably the most important thing for me.
Asher, hey, thank you for taking time out today, man. Good luck with everything as we move forward.
Oh, thanks. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, and music around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.